Did I ever tell you what the definition of insanity is? Insanity is doing the exact same fucking thing over and over again, expecting shit to change. That is crazy. The first time somebody told me that, I don't know, I thought they were bullshitting me, so boom, I shot him. The thing is, okay, he was right. And then I started seeing it everywhere I looked. Everywhere I looked, all these fucking pricks. Everywhere I looked, doing the exact same fucking thing. Over and over and over and over and over again. Thinking, this time is gonna be different. No, please. This time is gonna be different. I'm sorry. I don't like the way you are looking at me. Okay? You have a fucking problem in your head. Do you think I'm bullshitting you? Do you think I'm lying? Fuck you! Okay? Fuck you! It's okay, man. I'm gonna chill, man. I'm gonna chill. The thing is, alright? The thing is, I killed you once already. And it's not like I am fucking crazy. It's okay. It's like water under the bridge. Did I ever tell you the definition of insanity?
Oh, Jesus. No. Oh, fuck you! Fuck. Yes, it's another shitty podcast. 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 Yes, it's another shitty podcast.
Hello and welcome to the third season. I can't believe that I'm saying this, given the fact that I'm a great abandoner and quitter of things. But thanks to Ali, this thing has reached its third season. Unbelievable.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Of YASP for yet another shitty podcast. And this season, we're hoping to bring you more on, let's say, niche in a good way content, and more targeted content, more thought out and fleshed out content. And we're gonna start this season with an all new guest. We'll get to him, not just yet, who is finally someone that is not Iranian. That's also a plus for this season.
Oh, yeah.
So we've always had Iranian guests. But before I go
Introduce yourself.
I am Amir Reza, and I am, as always, joined with my co-host Ali. Hey Ali, how's
Hello,
the
everyone.
new Persian year treating you?
So far, it's not been as bad. I mean, so far we only had one death. We had Gilbert Gottfried, I think.
Mm-hmm. So you count the deaths not only in Christian or Gregorian or whatever the hell the name of that their calendar is, but also in Persian years.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so far,
How about-
nobody Persian has died as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah. But anyways, as Amir said, we do niche topics. This is why we chose this niche multi-billion-dollar gaming franchise.
Well, kind of niche. Okay, video games are not niche anymore. I'm such a big nerd that I forgot that being a nerd is not even a nerd thing anymore. God damn 2022. But let's say hi to JB, a good friend of mine, hailing from America. It's the first time that he's with us. Hopefully he's going to be a returning guest for our podcast. It's an honor to have you, JB. So if you're comfortable, you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you guys for having me.
Which is all ours. Go on. Yeah.
I'm
We are
JB.
very pleasured.
I'm JB. I'm Amir's token American friend. Current college student. I've been playing video games since I was about 6 years old. I've been involved in politics since I was about 16, maybe. And so, as I've become more involved in politics, I've realized some of the more subtle and also obviously the more overt political themes and messages that are in video games, and that's why I'm here today to talk with these two people.
And
These two people.
these two creatures, these two basement dwellers. But
Yeah.
putting
two,
jokes aside,
wow.
These two fine gentlemen.
Wow. So you
yeah.
assumed our gender.
Oh wow! Come on, let's keep this one only political, not the other types of political.
Too
The
late.
other aspects.
It's
You
too
did
late. We're
ruin
getting
it.
political. Yeah.
Okay,
Who
PC
was a,
principal, enlighten us.
Who is the better fictional president? Anton York or oh fuck, I don't
Or
remember any other one.
Lex Luthor.
Lex Luthor. Yeah, let's go with that. Both are from comics.
I would go with Lex Luthor.
I mean,
But we haven't mentioned what game we're gonna talk about, and it's been like how many minutes into the episode? So we're gonna talk about a
that reminds me.
relatively more political video game. Yeah, what does it remind you?
I need to do the stopwatch so we know how long we've been recording.
Oh, now you remember that. Fantastic.
Yeah.
But well,
This
I mean,
podcast
we
is
are.
a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
I mean, it is well-oiled, but I don't know if it's a machine.
Good one. But given the fact that we're going to talk about a rather incredibly chaotic video game series and franchise, I think it's like only appropriate that we act accordingly. So we're going to be talking primarily about Far Cry 6, but I think we're going to be talking about the Far Cry franchise in general, but with a bigger focus on the latest
before
one.
that, I have a question. And for you and JB, what is your relationship with Ubisoft? Like, what franchises do you play more? What were your favorite games? What do you think of the company? All of that.
I think JB should go first. I'm gonna have to think about it for a while.
I mean, I haven't played, to my knowledge, many Ubisoft games. I mean, obviously they do have some. What would be the word? Like, they have like a cult following with a lot of their games, especially like Rainbow Six Siege. Some of the Call of Duty games.
Call of Duty is Activision. So Assassin's Creed, Prince of Persia, which is abandoned. Yeah,
the
Assassin's
Tom
Creed.
Clancy ones.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not like a huge follower of Ubisoft. But they do have some games that I thoroughly enjoy. So.
Right. Okay. So have you played Watch Dogs? Any of them, or like?
I played Watch Dogs a really long time ago. I played the first one.
Okay.
After it had come out, obviously played Far Cry. I have played Rainbow Six Siege.
Assassin's Creed?
No, I've only played one Assassin's Creed game, and that was Assassin's Creed 3.
Oh, okay.
The American history.
Arguably the most political one. Yeah. So I can see that, I can see a pattern here. If it's not overtly political, you're not necessarily into it. Uh,
No, not a huge
to
fan.
which I recommend playing Splinter Cell Conviction, which actually has a mission in Iran, and you're like, and there are some Farsi dialogues in it as well. It's a fun
Is it
experience.
Ayatollah approved?
No, it was actually banned here, to be precise.
Really?
Battlefield 3
Battlefield
and
3
Call of
was
Duty,
banned.
not Call of Duty. Yeah, that was banned, and also Splinter Cell Conviction, precisely because of that mission, which had something to do with, like, it had a dialogue with a IRGC commander kind of thing, and he was like, Sam Fisher would approach him, and he would say something like, "Come to our house in Farsi. We have korma sabzi," which is like a really popular dish in Iran. Like, it's arguably the most popular dish
It's
in Iran.
popular with Amir and people like that. I don't eat
No,
it.
it's not popular with me.
No, I
I'm
don't eat
okay with it. I'm not in love
it.
with it
Jamie
either.
is more popular because, it has a religious thing about it too.
Anyways, this is not a cooking shoot. I was just like trying to say that it has a Farsi and Iranian thing going for it. But I did think about my relationship with Ubisoft. I don't know how to pronounce this goddamn French company, but
Aren't they German?
it's French, dude. Goddamn.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm 100% sure.
Okay, I'm gonna look it
I
up.
I think
100% sure. I'm JB.
yeah. I think my first interaction with him was Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, which is like a
Oh,
really endearing game for us Iranians, since it was
yeah.
like literally named after our country, at least the historic name of our country.
I
Like,
mean,
it was actually
historical is like
really
100 years ago. Literally a century ago, we became Iran.
well.
Reza
Yes
Shah
and
changed
no.
it.
Yeah, I know. He didn't change it. Like, it was always Iran. Iran is actually older than Persia, because
Oh, I
Persia is the
know,
name
I
that the
know.
Western countries gave us. But like, anyways, I was just saying that I think back then Ubisoft actually stood for something. Like, they actually meant something in the video gaming world. Uh, they set trends. They were creative, and Prince of Persia was no uh, normal game back in the day, and
Oh yeah,
I remember
I
like
had
they
it
invented a
on
lot of
V.
mechanisms.
Believe it or
The
not,
first Prince of Persia,
no, Sands of Time. I had it on
because
V.
whoa, I didn't even
I
know that
think
that was
so.
released for Wii.
Let me check. I do remember there was time travel involved, but I don't know if it was Sands of Time.
All of them have time traveling. Oh, okay. The time traveling you're talking about, I think you're talking about Warrior Within, which is the second one,
Oh yeah.
which is like a more violent version of Prince of Persia, which is my favorite Prince of Persia of all time. But I was just
Oh
gonna
yeah,
say
I
that,
had it
like,
on V.
I loved that game. I loved Beyond Good and Evil. I loved
Assassin's Creed.
well, back then they didn't have Assassin's Creed, but they did have Splinter Cell, which I was too young to actually be able to play it myself and not like
Okay,
have a
I'm
brain
sorry.
fart.
I'm sorry to again break your stuff, but it was actually the Forgotten Sands that I had on V. I found it.
Oh, okay. Forgotten Sands was a really bad game. Like, that was
I had
because
fun.
we had.
Fucker.
First of all, we need to have an episode on Prince of Persia.
Yeah.
But so Prince of Persia wasn't initially Ubisoft's, as far as I know, or maybe it is. But like, the first version is a DOS game, and then we have a
Oh
Prince of
yeah.
Persia 3D, which is a side scroller, and then
I
Sands
have
of Time.
played that. I have
Oh
played the
yeah,
DOS
okay,
game.
yeah. It's like, and like it's small tidbit is that it's one of the first video games to actually use what would eventually become motion capturing as for the jumps. I think one of the
Uh,
developers used the camera home, like handy cam camera, and recorded their brother or something, like a sibling, jumping on couches and shit, and like they tried to make it as realistic as possible. So that's kind of interesting.
but just so you
So we
know, we're
had the
talking about this
mm,
for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, okay. So we had the trilogy, and then we had a reboot of Prince of Persia, which didn't catch on, and then they released Forgotten Sands. But I just wanted to say my relationship with Ubisoft has, in parallel with their quality of their games, deteriorated because they have become a shit company, and I don't like them anymore. I have a lot of fond memories of them as a kid and as a teenager, but now I just like I shake my head whenever I think about this company, which has become like a money grab, nothing more at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you. Before we started recording, I was talking about the NFTs thing.
Oh yeah,
It's not good that you're ushering this. I know it makes a lot of money, you think, and you need to get in on that because you're a, well, should we get political? Capitalist society. In a capitalist society where the bottom line matters more than people or your product.
I mean, yeah, I think that's like the biggest bane to video games exist, and like any form of art's existence is
Yeah,
capitalism in the sense that like when you look at movies, music, video games, everything is becoming shittier and like more fan service by day because guess what? They just make more money and like they're not even they're not even products in and of themselves. They're just like I remember Phil Knight, the founder and CEO of Nike, and he said we're a big advertising company and our best advertisement is our shoes. And I think that formula is being applied to everything now. Like every company is an advertisement company, and their best advertisement is their products. Like we don't use the products for the sake of the products anymore. We're just doing it for the sake of being trendy and like not falling behind, which is genius if
so
you're
the end
a
game is workers of the world, let us all unite.
Well,
I
I
think
mean, like what you're saying kind of goes into what Guide to Board talks about with the spectacle. Um, and I think, obviously we can incorporate that later on, considering that this Far Cry game is probably, like, I would say one of the more spectacular, so to say, Far Cry games that Ubisoft has put out.
Okay, just a quick note because I don't remember it. Is Just Cause Ubisoft?
no, it's not Ubisoft. I don't remember the studio, but it is in Ubisoft.
Okay, so
But let's jump into
dude, I
Far
didn't
Cry
say
itself.
my
Oh, okay. I
relationship with
didn't even know
Ubisoft.
you wanted to announce a relationship. Go
I
on.
do because Ubisoft is my EA, meaning
And
they
love hate.
cancelled everything I wanted and ruined the other franchises that I liked.
Okay, so
Okay, my
a wrecking ball.
yeah, they come in like a wrecking ball, and they're not even hot like Miley Cyrus was. And
So she isn't anymore.
I mean, it depends.
Okay, but let's not digress. Go on.
Okay. My first and my favorite franchise from Ubisoft is one that I don't know if either of you really have played, The Settlers.
I know about this game, but I have never played it myself.
I've never even heard of it.
Okay, it's a strategy game. It's a PC strategy game, and it was a great franchise. Like Settlers 3, in my opinion, is one of those influential strategy games, along the lines of Age of Empires 2 and Civilization 2. A lot of twos.
Okay.
And Warcraft 2. But the thing is, they out of nowhere just cancelled it. They stopped making it. I do realize, and the last game, which was Settlers, I think 7, Path to a Kingdom, was really bad, like monstrously bad. And so, they cancelled my favorite franchise, which was the Settlers. I loved the second Assassin's Creed game, Brotherhood in particular, which is the third game actually. But I loved
Yeah.
Brotherhood. And then Assassin's Creed became like
Like
RPG light.
Oh, you mean beginning from Origins, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and before Origins, it's not like Syndicate and Liberation was good, but nowadays they just, like, for example, when Valhalla was announced, I was like, oh, okay, so you're making a light version of Skyrim, a diet version of Skyrim. And
Yeah, which is a foreshadowing of one of our future episodes, by the way, Skyrim.
yeah, yep.
Which will also feature an all new guest, which is friends with JB actually. So stay
Oh,
tuned for
nice.
that as well.
Yep. But I mean, we'll get to Bethesda when we get there. Bethesda, they're like, they
Yeah, that's
betrayed
like
me.
that's a
Look
can of
how they
worms that
massacred.
you only
Yeah,
have to open when you
yeah.
definitely
But
have to. Mm.
the thing about Ubisoft is that if I want to put it in movie terms, they're like, they make movies. They're like, let me think of, James Bond movies. They used to be this big cultural stuff, but nowadays they just happen. Like No Time to Die just happened, and okay, we got mad about it, and then we just forgot about it.
Yeah, they're like
That's Ubisoft. I don't care if they're making a new game, because why would I care? It's gonna use the same exact shitty engine that they always use, which is Unity. Fuck Unity, by the way. I
okay.
this is the worst product is Unity, because a lot of indie games use it and they don't know how to optimize it, and it's really shitty.
Mm.
And they use the same exact physics, they use the same exact environment, and they use sometimes the same exact story. So why the fuck would I care about anything that has Ubisoft name on it? The same way that I don't give a shit if it has DC's name on it or Marvel's name on it anymore, because okay, you're gonna give me the same exact shit. Let's get this over with and talk about, I don't know, and play one of my favorite games now, the MMORPG Tycoon 2.
Okay, but let's get back to Far Cry for
For fuck's sake, for Far Cry's
yeah,
sake.
for Far Cry's sake. Yeah, since Ali and I have not played Far Cry 6, I think
Yeah.
it's your cue to.
Oh, before we do that though, I'm sorry again for cutting you off. What games have you played in the Far Cry franchise?
Me?
Yeah, both of you.
So, obviously, I played Far Cry 6. I played Far Cry 4, 3, and 2.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
How
played
about
the first one, the second one, 3, uh, 4, and like the Blood Dragon DLC, was it? I'm not sure about the name, but like I'm sure it was a DLC.
Yeah, Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon.
Yeah,
hmm.
and mm, okay, no other Far Cries as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, the
Well,
last
I
one I played was
played
4.
okay. I played 4 and Primal. So none of us have played the fifth one, which should give you a good indication of its quality and its hype.
Yeah,
And so, um, just again, why would you want to play the sixth one, JB? Like, you didn't play the fifth one, so obviously you weren't interested in that. What made you interested in the sixth one?
No, like I said, I am very interested in politics, and while the fifth one was political, um, I was more interested in 6 because 6 to me seemed like a critique of left wing politics, which it it was, but it wasn't at the same time. I don't know if you'd want to get into that now or wait till later.
Well,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
if
but
you want
let's
to
wait.
elaborate, yeah, you should wait a bit. I think. I don't know.
Yeah. So, okay, first of all, first impression, is it actually a good game or not?
I would say it is, yeah. I mean, at the time that I played it, I wasn't really playing video games a lot. But that was one that, you know, it had me like continuously turning on my PS4 to like try and beat it. Um,
Oh, you use a PS4.
yeah,
Well, that's a
yeah.
shame.
Yeah, but yeah, it's also worth mentioning that he's also a not a fond user of technology. Like he's actually I don't know what to like. How would you describe your? It's not even political, anyways. Like your ideology as a whole, JB.
Um, I would describe my ideology as a whole as like primitive, which kind of funny considering I didn't play Far Cry Primal. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
no, but
well, I mean, aside from that, you use a PS, which, as we all know,
Inferior
is,
to PCs, but
yes,
yeah,
yes.
also incredibly cheaper than a PC. So
Wow, wow.
exactly.
I'm ashamed for both of you, and there is no way I can express that shame. So,
yeah, thank you for that.
you're
But
Um,
yeah, like
mm,
for me, it wasn't just the fact that I was trying to understand the game from a political lens, although that was definitely a part of it.
mhm.
But just the game itself, to me at least, was a very fun game. I mean, it's what kept me going back online to play it.
And
oh,
how about the graphics and the story? Like the story without the political aspect, like as in like the storyline, the characters. Since we had some celebrities for this game as well,
yeah, yeah. That's the thing that I only know about Far Cry 6. I didn't look up any reviews or anything. I just know Giancarlo Esposito, which, I mean, for you
aka
veterans,
yeah.
was in Breaking Bad, but for us real movie fans, was in Do the Right Thing, was in it.
I don't
I
even
mean,
go on.
I mean, in my opinion, the storyline was actually, really good. Not to get too deep into the politics of it, but
Mhm.
considering how those politics influenced it, I thought that the storyline made a lot of sense. You have to build a relationship with these different groups of people to help you take out high-ranking uh, individuals under the presidency, and then eventually go after the presidency itself. In my opinion, I think it had a great story all the way up until the end of the story, which I won't spoil, but that was just something that kind of left me like blue balled, I guess you could say, is you're building this whole storyline up and then it ends the way it does, and you're like, I can't believe that just happened.
Well, to be
Mm.
honest, as far as I'm concerned, that is like the Ubisoft's MO. Like, they can't write a story that doesn't fuck it up at the end.
Yeah, honestly.
That is a
Like,
good point. I never thought about it that way. Like the endings are pretty bad consistently in most of their games.
Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, in Brotherhood's ending was so bad that I'm like, okay, I love the game, but I will never think about the modern day stuff ever again.
Yeah. Okay, so the story was good, the gameplay was good, the graphics were good.
Oh,
Uh,
for the graphics, I mean, they were very lackluster for me. I mean, this game was a relatively modern game, And
I mean,
the graphics really,
2022 is pretty modern.
yeah, like the graphics just didn't display that. I mean, at least from what I found, like all of the flowers, the flower models, they weren't like,
All the foliage were like
yeah,
not up
yeah,
there, huh?
yeah, like they weren't 3D. Like you could turn from an angle,
Oh,
you
okay, I get
like,
what you mean. I get what you mean.
There
yeah,
was sprites.
yeah,
Well,
and with how much money Ubisoft makes, with how much technology is available, you'd think they'd be able to, at least do that right.
well, they would be able to. They're just not willing to.
Yeah.
You know,
They can.
because
It's not a question of they want. It's a question of
mm,
I'm sorry. It's a question of they want to or not. Because well, honestly, and this is the sad part, why would they?
yeah,
Yeah.
as long as it sells,
Yeah.
they're just going to be happy with it.
I mean,
And
EA has learned that a long time ago that they can literally reuse assets for FIFA, and some idiots will buy it.
Yeah.
one of our friends is missing in this conversation. He would have been incredibly upset with
Yeah.
that
It would have been livid right now.
statement.
Well, I mean, to be
Yeah.
honest, the only thing I need to dismantle his argument is that, well, you pay money to Ubisoft to sell you the same game, dude.
To EA. But not only does he buy every version of EA, he also spends money on like the cards and shit, like the Ultimate Team cards.
Oh,
Yeah,
fucking hell. He's
yeah.
EA's best customer then.
Well, we all have our own vices. So,
Yeah.
um,
But my voice
but
doesn't contribute to capitalism.
That's what you think. That's what you think.
No, that's a
yeah.
joke. Yeah, that's a joke. I say that as I drink some Coke Zero.
Mashallah, brother, mashallah. But
Mashallah.
can you give us a pretty short rundown of the story, like the setting where it takes place, for those of us who don't know, uh, like where it takes place, what year it takes place, and like what the general storyline is, without spoiling anything?
Yeah, I mean, basically it takes place in Cuba, but they don't want to say that. It's a small Caribbean island that was famous for its tobacco exports, um, but is now under a dictatorship where individuals are extremely oppressed. There's huge military presence everywhere, and basically, your character is someone who is trying to flee from this country, and just ends up sort of getting dragged into the whole revolution that is going on in the country at the time. And so you have to work with that guerrilla group, and then you create sort of a social network of guerrilla groups to take down the regime.
And your
And
leader is a
what
guy
timeline is
called
it?
Jay Guava. Not Che Guava, just Jay Guava.
What
Real
timeline?
original. Is it like, I know it's fictional and I know it's ambiguous a bit, but like, and I know that even today's Cuba feels like the 60s and 50s because of like the kind of sanctions they've been under. But like, does that game like use any modern technology, any like mobile phones or anything?
Oh,
Or is
yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah. It's a very modern game.
Mm,
You do have cell phones. You do have like there are computers.
mm,
There's a television network that comes to interview the president at one point. But
oh,
obviously,
okay.
a lot of things in the game are meant to represent like improvised technology and weapons, because in the game they are also under embargoes.
Oh, okay. And do you think they would like have any like they would borrow anything from the situation in current Venezuela as well, given how it's not really close to, but like kind of like what was going on with Cuba a while ago, like under extreme sanctions and I don't know, revolutionary
I mean,
activities.
to be honest, you can do a parallel between that story and any country that has a charismatic dictatorship, like Venezuela had the last guy. Who was he?
Venezuela had
The
Hugo
fat guy.
Chavez.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that guy. And Cuba obviously had Fidel, Hops
Fidel
in the
Castro.
shower, Castro, and China has, you know,
Gee.
yeah, and
No, but like the thing I'm saying is that like they're islands. Uh,
Venezuela isn't an island though.
no, I'm okay. I'll be back in 10.
Okay.
And what? Seconds, minutes, hours,
Well,
days?
what?
He just said he'll be back in 10, but he
Oh
didn't
yeah,
specify 10 what.
he means probably a couple of minutes. We will cut these out in the edit, hopefully.
Inshallah.
I'll be back in 20 seconds.
Okay.
1, 2.
He's either going to piss or he's going to touch his pussy.
Takes 20 seconds for that.
Well, I mean, his pussy is ferocious. You do know what I mean, right?
Yeah. Seen his cat. I love his cat.
Tadashi.
Okay, yeah, it was Tadashi related. He was like scratching the door. What was I saying? No, I was just saying that like I know Venezuela isn't. Wait, yeah, Venezuela isn't an island. I'm just saying that it's
Okay,
like
did you
a
for
very
1 second, okay, dude, did you for 1 second wanted to say it is an island?
no. I just wanted to say, what are those things that like are surrounded by water in three directions and have land only in one direction?
I don't
Peninsula.
think it is that.
Oh yeah. I thought it is, but then I remembered it's not even that. But anyway, I'm just gonna say that it's really close to America. It's like Central America. It's close
Yeah,
to
but
USA.
Cuba
I
is
mean,
closer.
I know, but I'm just saying that like they're like
Okay, I need to
there's
mention
been
this. This is a bit political and it talks about our charismatic dictator. I don't know if JB knows this, but the president before the current one, the president before that, 2 presidents ago, was a
mm,
charismatic guy by the name of Mahmoud Ahmadinejad.
I think he might
And
know him.
and he had this amazing quote about England. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
What was the
No.
quote, Amir?
I it's hard for me to translate it to English, but wasn't
Okay,
that like it's
he
a
said that
small
England, yeah, is a
mm,
small island in the west of Africa.
yeah, like and he was also a great friend of Hugo Chavez as well. And like
Yeah,
there was controversy when after his death at his funeral he hugged his mother.
yeah,
And like given the fact that it's the Islamic Republic, it was kind of weird and awkward what he did. Um,
yep.
and people
Just
made a
wanted
lot
to,
of jokes.
yeah, I
Yeah.
just wanted to say that. I mean, much like Ahmadinejad, doesn't know islands.
Yeah, at least I didn't say Venezuela is in Europe. Um, it
I know
did remind
people
me
who
of
think it
Sarah
is in
Palin,
Africa.
who said she could see Russia, if I'm not mistaken, from Alaska or something like that.
No, that is possible. That is actually possible.
I know it
Yeah,
is possible, but like uh, she meant it more not in the way of like just Russian land, but in like seeing almost Moscow, like that was what she was insinuating, like seeing mainland Russia from Alaska. Yeah.
Well,
Okay, so but let's talk about the Far Cry 6 a bit more. Like, how long did it take you to beat the game, and like, did you do all the side missions or not? And like, what was the variety of the side missions? Would they get repetitive, or would you like? Were they good enough, the side missions, for you to like voluntarily do them before the main missions? Like, what are your thoughts on those things? And like the weapons, the variety of weapons, the like the characters aside from the main characters. Like, do you think
I
they
mean,
did a good job?
to be honest, Ubisoft has this reputation for cramming shit into the game to the point that
Mm,
it looks big, but when you get to it, it's like three things copied and pasted.
I mean, to me, how long did it take me? I'd say it probably took me about a week and some change to finish it.
mm,
I did do a lot of side missions. I think they incorporated side missions in an interesting way because when you think of side missions in most other games, like most of the time they're a bit more serious, especially in things like Fallout or things like Skyrim. You know, obviously
mm.
they do have funny moments in some of them, but for me, I feel like most of the side missions in the game were sort of a comedic relief.
Oh,
One
okay.
one that really stuck out to me is there's sort of a side mission where you can get a chicken and fight it, like cockfighting, and it turns the screen into something that is similar to Street Fighter. And
Oh,
so,
okay.
like on one hand, you're like, "Why is this here? This doesn't make sense." But on the other hand, you're like, "This is actually hilarious. I want to keep doing these." Um, and so on one hand, I hate it, and on one hand, I love it because they were fun, but the story of Far Cry 6 tends to have a bit more of a serious note. So it
Mm,
kind of like throws off the pace, but
get
in
what
a
you mean.
very enjoyable way. And when it comes to characters, it
I mean, there is
honestly,
one that everybody wants to know about. How was Giancarlo Esposito? I don't know his character's name.
um, uh, that's the villain, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm,
I
The
mean,
president.
honestly, he he makes a perfect villain. Um, you know that I don't know how to describe like that presence that he has in
mm.
his roles in his personal character. It really shines through. He's a very serious, no nonsense,
Yeah.
like very I am in charge type of character. And I think that if they were to have anyone else to play that in that game, it'd be sort of a dishonor to what they were trying to do.
Oh,
Interesting.
nice.
But for
And do
the
you think
other,
they
oh,
go
go ahead.
on before I ask? No, tell me about
Oh,
the other characters, but I have a follow up question on the villain. Go on.
so for the other characters, um, honestly, this is sort of where Ubisoft finally decided to wake up and be like, "Oh my gosh, it's 2022." You know, they really embraced the identities that can be found in the Caribbean. You know, obviously they had their more Hispanic influenced characters, but they also had a lot of Afro Caribbean
Okay.
characters, which it's something that most people probably wouldn't realize. But like, I don't really,
You
I
mean
don't
people
really.
from like Haiti?
No, no, no. Like more of a Creole between somewhat of a Latin identity and a black identity.
Oh, okay, okay.
And I think that representation was pretty well done. And on top of that, they actually have a trans character in there,
Oh,
which
Oh,
I thought was interesting because, I mean, to my knowledge, I haven't played any of their games or any games I can think of that has an openly transgender character.
there are
Um,
there are quite a few, I think. Well, one was by the people from that made Life is Beautiful. I know that one.
oh,
I think
I
it's becoming more and more frequent for developers to finally acknowledge the existence of such people. It's actually even
Such
kind
people?
of no. But by such
I'm
people, I
kidding.
mean like people that identify as that and are that.
In
I don't know how to
LGBTQ
say it.
people.
Yeah, LGBTQ people, and it's also trendy. Like it,
Yeah,
it's a point of it's a selling point. You're like, oh yeah, I'm
that
acknowledging this, not
that's actually an
because of
important
respecting you,
thing.
but because of
Yeah,
money. You know,
yeah, that's the thing. They take your identity, they package it and sell it to you.
yeah, like literally token characters. But I'm not sure if it's the case in here. I'm just saying that like we're gonna see a lot of
Which
that.
is, and I'm sorry to ask this so cynically, but I will. Is the trans character important to the story?
yeah, actually, that's sort of the thing that I found most interesting, not only about that character, but about the other characters that they have, is that, obviously they were thrown in there with the end goal of making money. But when it comes to how they interact with everything, they're not just there for diversity points. The trans character is actually the second in command of the
Hmm.
main guerrilla group that you're fighting for. He has actually one whole mission dedicated to him, pretty much. He is pretty much always there whenever anything serious is going. So it's not like they just throw a random trans character in there, they show up for one scene, and then, they're just an NPC for the rest of the game. Actually, put these diverse characters into a lot of different important positions that not only made sense, but you were really able to sort of, how would you say this? You were really able to appreciate their role in the game. It's not just like they were put there to be put there and,
It
slapped
wasn't
on
for
an
a headline.
advertisement.
Yeah, it wasn't for a headline.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they could have easily just uh, put a random trans person in there and then get a news article that's like, Far Cry has openly trans character. No, like they were actually like very well thought out, very important to the story.
Do you know what we call that maneuver? We call
Which
it
one?
the fact that you put an LGBT people in a role just to have a headline. We call it the Disney maneuver.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
definitely
Because,
say
yeah, those
like
motherfuckers.
not only were they diverse characters, but you could tell that the developers actually put some depth into who they were, and I found that really interesting.
That's interesting and subtle for a French company. Did we
There you
do?
go.
Did we
We
do?
haven't done the French insult,
Oh
like
yeah, yeah.
per episode French insult yet. Yeah,
Okay, this is the first insult of 2023.
two.
Ma- oh, two. I'm sorry.
It's the third season, but it's
Yeah, yeah.
2022.
I do. I was thinking third season, and I wanted to say
Yeah.
the year. It's the
Hmm.
first insult of the third season. I mean, when you think about it, the fact that Ubisoft's quality has deteriorated is pretty
Hmm.
apt when you realize they're French.
Of course it
And
is. And by the way, I just wanted to once again put it out there that I do not share the views of my co-host. I actually really like the French. I'm learning French. I've been
Wow.
learning it for like 2 months now.
Oh, get a load of this guy.
Yeah, the French learning guy,
Yeah,
the
I'm a Frenchophile or whatever.
Francophile.
I would
Oh,
just like to come out and say that I am in support of Ali's position on the French.
Thank you. We can both be racist against French together.
okay. Now you're bonding over your shared hatred.
You might even say, yeah, you might even say we're proud of our hatred of French. We're a bunch of proud boys.
Oh my god.
Ah, god damn. Okay, I
This,
think I might have to cut this out. Jesus.
this fucking guy.
Yeah.
I mean, the
But
joke is so obvious. For the record, we are not. We are not. I am not part of any terrorist organization.
Nice save, nice save.
Yeah, yeah. I just listened to Ben Shapiro
are they
and
classified as a terrorist organization though?
oh yeah.
Like,
Well, I don't know.
really?
They're mostly white, so probably not.
I mean, they attacked the
No,
Capitol on
like
January
recognized
6th.
by like the U.S. state as a terrorist organization, are they?
I mean, I'm gonna Google it now. And if our
But
proud
while you're doing
boys,
that, I just wanted to ask JB about the role of the villain of the game. Is he like? Do you think he's modeled after Batista? Like, do you
No,
think?
no.
Mm,
So he is definitely modeled after Castro. That's for sure.
okay, I'm sorry, I need to just say this. They're not considered a terrorist group in the US, but they are considered terrorists in Canada.
okay, yeah, I thought as much because like the U.S. is good friends with white supremacists most of the time.
Yep.
Uh,
Which means JB is a white supremacist. Which is
he's not the representation of the U.S.
no,
state
no.
though.
This is how it works. He's a white
Uh-huh.
supremacist, which is why
Uh-huh.
at the beginning of the episode he called us these people.
I see. These
Yeah.
brown people.
Oh
Yes,
my
exactly.
god.
I mean, JB, if it helps, Amir is much browner than me. I can be.
Uh-huh. But so you mentioned that he's modeled after Castro, but like I think a lot of communists would kind of be enraged by the fact that like this Castro is being portrayed as a dictator and not Batista. And like, what
Wait,
is
Dave
your
Batista?
no, not Dave Batista. Batista, the president that Castro and Che Guevara removed or like
Oh, okay.
dethroned, which
Well,
was a pretty brutal dictator,
yeah, I know. But Dave
installed
Batista
dictator.
can also be a brutal dictator. We don't know. We haven't appointed him yet.
Yeah, that is true. But
But the
like,
thing is that it all
mhm.
depends if there are like, do they? Because there is one thing that I know from Far Cry Primal and Far Cry 5 is that Far Cry is many things. Subtle is not one of them. Do they have like overtly obvious communist iconography?
Uh, so to go over both of your questions, that's sort of the thing I found probably most interesting slash perplexing with Far Cry 6 is that on one hand, it is riddled with Red Scare era type propaganda. And on the other one, it seems to sort of glorify what we would consider to be like socialist ideas. Um, so to go into it a bit more, uh, basically the president uses technology, basically poisons, on tobacco plants to make a cure for cancer, which I found to be a comparison to Cuba's lung cancer vaccine. And so that in itself is perplexing because on one hand they're admitting that, you know, this person uh, which is like sort of a stand-in for Cuba, has done something that is absolutely incredible. But at the same time, because of who it's coming from, they can't accept it.
Well,
And so,
to be honest, this is again something I'm not gonna go deeper into it because I still want to live. But the thing is that looking outside of the dictatorships, it's easier to understand. Oh yeah, they've done great things. Why aren't you um, acknowledging that? You know,
yeah,
like let's imagine there is this country and they have a revolution. This random country and a very conservative regime gets instated. Let's call this a fictional country Nari. Now in Nari,
Very
el-
subtle. Go on.
yeah, I know. I've learned from Ubisoft how to be subtle, and and in this country there are good social and political freedoms that weren't there before that were instated, but the whole amount of the stuff that this new Nari regime did made it so that you can't really look at the good stuff because honestly the good stuff is not worth the pain that they're causing.
So you're
yeah.
saying that the bad stuff outweigh the good stuff.
Yes, but I am tired, so I don't remember to word it like that.
So that sort of goes into a quote that the president says. He's getting interviewed by U.S. media, and the woman is asking him, isn't Viviro, the cancer curing drug, is it true that that's made with slave labor? And he says, something along the lines of, Viviro has helped millions of people live and can help millions more live. And he says, to those people, do you think that it matters where it comes from? And I mean, I think that's sort of like a poor example of trying to like change the perspective. I mean, it definitely does add to his character,
Yeah.
but in terms of like a political message, it just kind of falls flat.
I mean, to be
Um,
honest, that is probably one of the oldest political messages out there. The most famous one being done by another weird guy that Ubisoft wants to promote as being in the right for some reason, Niccolo Machiavelli. Uh, he has this famous quote, which I am blanking on.
Uh, ends
The
justify the
end,
means.
yes, the end justifies the means. And that is a great message for dictators because we've done good stuff. Don't look at the piles of dead bodies that helped us reach there. We did good stuff.
yeah, I mean that's sort of what his entire thing is, and so that's where you get the sort of revolutionary perspective. And so this is what I'm talking about, and it has conflicting views because obviously, um, Yara is meant to be Cuba. The president is meant to be Fidel Castro. So obviously, it's sort of demonizing what the U.S. Has labeled as like evil dictatorial socialism. But then the rebels, at the same time, also have a lot of socialist sort of core values. They're obviously very progressive. They're led by someone who is in a relationship with a trans man who is second in charge. They're fighting for equality and freedom. Um, and they're also very anti-imperialist. They hate the U.S. Constantly refer to them as Yankees in the game, and so that's sort of the thing. Is like you're kind of wondering where they're at. They're critiquing what is very obviously like a representation of Cuba, and yet at the same time, like they're portraying the good guys as what could also be considered socialist revolutionaries. And so I guess that's sort of, something to think for ourselves. You know what I mean? Like,
I do know what you mean. The problem is that in my head, as you're saying this, I'm sorry for saying it like this, I am remembering Far Cry 5. You know?
I haven't played it. You need to elaborate.
I'm sorry,
yeah,
Far Cry 4. Far Cry 4. Why did I
Oh,
say
okay. Okay.
yeah.
Far Cry 4? You
Mm-hmm.
had the pagan man, the obvious
Mm-hmm.
villain,
Mhm.
and the good guys were shown as like the revolutionaries again because Far Cry can't tell a new story to save its fucking brain. I mean, seriously, okay, just how many of them are about a revolution?
I think almost all of them, even the first one, is kind of like the first one isn't about a revolution as much as it is about like a coup, I would say. But
Which is a yeah.
but it's mostly concerned with like the will to power in a Foucaultian way and the
Oh
different
my
ways that
god.
different groups
Oh my
achieve it. Yeah, I'm a fan of Foucault as
no,
well,
not
and
that you're a fan of Foucault. It's that you go to one French class and then you start pronouncing it Foucaultian and bringing up Foucault everywhere. Next time
okay,
you're
how
gonna
how
say
should I pronounce his name?
Foucault, like a
Foucault.
normal person, like a normal person.
Who the hell pronounces his name as Foucault? Is Michel Foucault?
No, it's
Michel Foucault.
Michel. It's Michel Foucault.
Michel Michel Foucault, to be more precise. But
Merci
seriously, like
beaucoup.
you're just jealous of my French linguistic, newly acquired linguistic ability.
No. I'm jealous of the person who will slap your face when you tell that to them in person. Because I want
Okay.
it. I want that.
But like before we talk more about the game itself, I'm like curious because I've never got to actually ask you this. What is your own stance regarding Cuba, at least in the past, let's say 40 years or 50 years? Like
Basically, after Castro, in the Castro era, yes.
after, yeah, like after the revolution kind of like stabilized and like they didn't have to like worry about an American invasion as much as they did before. So, like,
After the
where do you
Bay of
stand on it?
Pigs.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
it wasn't. Go on.
obviously, this is more of a unpopular opinion on the left. I'm not a huge fan of Castro's Cuba, um, but at the same time, I do think that they did some good things. I think that there is a lot of propaganda out there against them. And I also think that it's easy to point at Cuba, as well as like Venezuela and any other country. It's easy to point at them and say how economically backwards they are without taking a step back and realizing that the US is what is at the end of the day holding them back. Obviously, with embargoes and sanctions on these countries, especially when they're coming from the US, it's very hard to, I would probably even say almost impossible to get from where they were, which was essentially like a feudalist country, to get to what we would consider a successful country. Um, and so I'm not the biggest fan of it, but obviously at the same time, you have to consider the other factors that go into it being the way that it is, and you do have to recognize what it has done.
And do you think the game like can address that in the sense that like show the devastating effects of like crippling sanctions and like do you think it shows how much external factors are in play as much as it does the internal factors like the dictator itself?
To be honest, I think you're asking too much of a Far Cry game, dude.
Yeah, I mean, so The
But
most
like it's a video game that has like tens of hours of like gameplay. They
Yeah,
can. I'm not saying they will. I'm
but the
just saying
thing
they
is,
can.
again, you look at the franchise, and this is the thing that I think we need to talk about next. It is still, at the end of the day, a Far Cry game.
yeah.
Well,
And
you can
so
always hope.
I mean, I sort of agree with Ali here, and that like it is a Far Cry game. So the central focus is on the villain and what horrible things he's done and how terrible he's made the country. But every once in a while, you do get a quick jab at America and its intervention. Like I said, they refer to America
Yankees.
as Yankees, yes, and they're very vehemently against going with them in any way. In fact, if I remember correctly, one of the missions, um, one of the main characters was actually receiving a weapon supply from America, and like it had to be kept very secret. And he literally says, if the leader found out, like it would be like an
Scandal.
unredeemable sin,
Mm-hmm.
basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so you do
Basically.
have
Mm-hmm.
that anti-imperialist message sort of hidden in there, um, but it the focus is on the president, and I think that that's sort of playing into a part of how we view things, because obviously, like I said, at least as Americans, we mostly tend to focus on how the country is rather than what made it that way.
Okay, that's interesting. So it kind of did touch on it, like more than I expected it to have done. So congratulations for setting the bar so low that doing the bare minimum is a surprise to me.
Yep.
Before we go on, I think we hit the 1 hour mark. So
Let me check.
we're gonna have to like add a lot of effects
Like
and shit like this, and I don't
literally,
want
yeah.
this episode. Yeah, so I don't want this episode to get too long. These are going to be removed, by the way, JB. So, do you think there are anything like any other things that that you would like to talk about and haven't been able to, JB?
In Far
Yeah,
Cry 6 specifically, because we will get to other Far Cry games in a bit, so like about Far Cry 6 specifically.
yeah. I mean, I think that what the game does is, I think it shows a revolution much better than um, a lot of other games, specifically Far Cry 4. Like, you're doing a lot of different things to fund your activities. You're joining up with major guerrilla groups as well as trying to get recruits. Um, no, you're going after these specific people in charge of things. And then, even after your revolution is won, um, there's still a little thing after where you have to sort of do maintenance work, basically fighting off like counter revolutionaries and things like that. And I think that that's interesting because, like, especially in a video game, right? You think, oh, we beat the boss, game over screen, it's done. But it sort of shows the reality, um, obviously not on par, but it shows that even after you've taken down the so called villain, there's still work to be done. Um, and I think that that's not only a good thing politically, obviously, because that is a very strong political message, it's a very true message, but also it's something that really adds to the game. Um, like I said, the ending for me was awful, so I wouldn't want to go back and replay it. But the fact that you still have something to go back into the game that's sort of contributing to the story, even once that villain is gone, it makes for a good political message, and it makes you want to go back and continue playing.
Interesting.
I do get what you mean. To be honest, you mentioned 4, and that's where I was going to say that, for me, Far Cry games are more about muscle memory than about actual engagement.
Yeah, I mean, in some sense, that's pretty true. I mean, they do try to switch it up with a lot of various different types of enemies. And I would say in some ways it works, in some ways it doesn't, because they try to keep you on your toes by adding all these new enemies. And then instead of just making it more about skill and technique, most of the times, if you're not taking that enemy out in like that specific way, they just become bullet sponges, which I think is really lame, because you either have one technique that you basically kill them how you're supposed to, or you just sit there and fire bullets at them until you're out. I think that there needs to be more creativity. I mean, like I said, it's 2022. It's a extremely wealthy company. They have the ability to give you a more diverse range of options, but they don't. And that's sort of the thing that, from a gameplay perspective, is really annoying to see.
I do understand what you mean. I really do. Like, as Amir said, once we get to Bethesda, I'm gonna let loose.
Yeah, Bethesda is the worst at that. I mean, obviously, I don't want to go into Bethesda too much, but I think the funniest thing I saw about them is, how do we make the boss harder? Just give it more health.
Yeah.
Yeah, give it more health and more damage to you, the player.
I mean,
Yeah.
okay, we're gonna talk about this more when we get to Skyrim and Elder Scrolls. Elder Scrolls, but one of the things is that Bethesda has this thing where the enemies in the dungeons level up with you.
Yeah.
Problem is, you don't have a cap. The enemies do. So at certain points, and that is like my current save, because still that is my fucking favorite game, despite all of its problems. When I go into a dungeon, no, it's not. It doesn't become too easy. All you see is one enemy type, because they've all leveled up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but there are mods for that though. Like you can install mods.
I mean, to be honest, there are mods for everything. I think Far Cry has a bunch of mods too.
Yeah, I mean, like the number of mods for Skyrim, like ridiculous.
Oh yeah. I mean, Skyrim is basically at this point, I think it's more of an engine than it is a game.
Yeah, but like JB wanted to say something. Go on.
Yeah, to bring it back to Far Cry, like incorporating what you had said, that's one thing that I do think that they did well, is that when you get new enemies, it's not just, the same enemies but with more health. Like, there's a pretty diverse set of enemies that you face. Like, there's the classic, like, tanky enemy. They have, I don't know how to describe it, but it's basically like a flamethrower, but with toxic fumes.
Okay, so poison thrower, let's say.
Yeah.
We call them Saddam.
And then one thing that I thought was really interesting is, obviously you did have like flying vehicles in Far Cry before, but now you have all sorts of enemies that can come at you from the sky. You have different types of helicopters. You have different types of bombers. You have people in cars, and then you have tanks, which honestly was one of the most fun parts of the game for me. Was just driving in a tank. And so that's the thing that I do like, is even though they didn't give you a diversity of way to kill the enemies, they at least gave you a diversity of enemies to kill.
Interesting. especially the tanks and the
Yeah, I mean, I'm
flying
considering
vehicle.
again. I'm very cynical about Ubisoft because all of the games I've played from them, I mean, for example, Assassin's Creed is basically just uh, keep the defend button down and then wait for the enemy to attack.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. I mean, that's sort of the good thing is that it tends to try to keep you on your toes. You can sit there, have a convoy pull up, and you're shooting them. You're focusing on them, and then next thing you know, a helicopter is above you attacking, and you have to take cover behind a car, or a tank comes up, and you have to try to scramble around it and disable it. Um, so I mean, the combat it's not the same all the time, and I think that's something that's good. I mean, if you go into a Skyrim dungeon, whether you're level 1 or level 81, right? You know there's going to be draugrs. You shoot a bunch of
yeah,
arrows at them, or you cleave them or whatever, and it is what it is. But in this game, it
in
felt like
progress.
every combat situation is kind of different because you don't know what's going to come at you. So you have to sort of adapt your gameplay to that. Be more aware of your surroundings,
That's
which is
interesting to me because this is only, and it's not really a critique on the game itself. It's more of a Ubisoft again. But to be honest, that's interesting to me. I have no expectations of Ubisoft games because, to be honest, the fun part of Assassin's Creed is meeting historical figures. The fun part of Far Cry 4 is just laying back and basically just watch pretty. It wasn't Caribbean, was it?
Scenery.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. No, it wasn't Caribbean. I think it was like a not Indian, like Nepal kind of thing.
yeah. I think it was
Okay.
Yeah,
Nepal.
To be
yeah.
honest, and this is gonna sound very racist, but a bunch of warm weather scenery with a Caribbean, Indian,
It wasn't
or tropic.
like solely wild, like warm though. Like it did have some
Cold
mountainish
parts.
Oh yeah,
cold parts. Yeah,
I don't know if this makes sense or not, but Far Cry games are very yellow.
yeah,
I
it
feel
does. Like
that. I feel
it's
that.
color
Yeah,
identity. If you could
yeah,
call it that.
Yeah.
exactly. So, and for me, that's that. So, that's actually great if Far Cry 6 finally changes that up. I'm kind of wondering, again, why it didn't make more of a splash.
Oh, by the
Um.
way,
Yeah.
after
I
you
don't know.
answer this, go on, go on.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. That sort of thing is like, I I got a lot of like YouTube ads for it, but like those aren't hard to get. But besides that, I really didn't see any like big gaming channels coming out and saying, Far Cry 6 playthrough. I mean, I'm not saying that there weren't any of those. I'm just saying, like,
There were
it,
enough of those.
yeah, like, I wasn't getting any of those besides, like, actual advertisements on YouTube. I don't think I saw an outside advertisement for Far Cry 6.
Me neither. That's the thing. I don't think I do have a massive gaming circle on YouTube. There are at most like three or four channels that are gaming stuff that I follow. And when Far Cry 6 came out, it just wasn't anything there. Like they said, yeah, we played it. And
Hmm.
it's weird because Watch Dogs Legion had more of a backlash, like a weird backlash that don't play this shit.
Oh yeah, it was really bad. But I just wanted to ask JB about the music, the soundtrack of Far Cry 6. Was it good? Like, was it any better than the previous ones, or it was just like generic FPS Far Cry soundtrack?
I mean, that's the music was honestly a pretty big part of it. Um, like I kind of forgot about it for this, but I remember when I was playing it, I was like, "This is actually good." like not just the music playing while you're doing things, but if you're like familiar with Far Cry, if you get into a vehicle, they have the radio playing,
Yeah.
and like, it's sort of had that like very obviously like Caribbean influenced music. And it wasn't just like, again, it wasn't just like a throwaway, like, oh yeah, this is what Caribbean music like sounds like, and that's what we're gonna play. Like, I mean, at least to me, is actually pleasant to listen to, and music is actually a very big part of the story, um, because the leader of the revolutionary group and her boyfriend, they're actually like a music duo, and
Oh, okay.
I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of their music specifically, but I mean, like, that's just my taste. I'm not saying like it was bad objectively. I'm just saying like
Oh, no, you can
compared.
you can say that. It's okay. We all say that. For example, I fucking hate Nirvana.
Yeah,
I
like
think the best thing out of Kurt Cobain's mouth was Kurt Cobain's brains.
Oh, God
like
damn.
like it did have a very like revolutionary sort of uh punk essence to it.
Mm.
Um and I mean, obviously, like that fits in very well with who they are and what they're doing. But to actually listen to it, I'd much rather just like drive around in a vehicle and listen to what it's playing on there.
I get
But I mean,
that. But
I
speaking of
guess
duos, it reminded me of something. It's one of our older episodes. Amir knows it better because Amir actually has played it. I've only seen video game footage of Borderlands 3.
Oh, yeah. Borderlands 3. I'm
The
actually
villains.
in. Yeah. I'm in the middle of
Oh,
finishing playing the DLCs, but I think JB wasn't finished with his sense.
sorry,
Well,
sorry.
yeah.
yeah, I mean, like maybe I'm just thinking too deeply into this.
Mm.
But I think it also makes sense that it's not as easy to listen to as the other music you're listening to, because the other music you're listening to is just sort of there, whereas the music they're making is in your face. Like the music itself is a like revolutionary act. So maybe that was a part of it. Maybe I'm just trying to like too big brain philosophy nerd on it, but come to think of it, like the fact that it makes it not easy to listen to plays into what it's trying to do.
It
I do
requires
know what you
your
mean.
attention. It
Yeah,
demands
yeah,
your attention. It just
yeah.
doesn't
To,
fail.
to quote a famous philosopher, London calling from the underground.
Famous
Come out of
philosopher
it.
indeed.
Yeah. I don't know if you've listened to Clash or not, JB.
I have not. I have not.
Oh, okay. This is like I think people now realize why I don't like Nirvana.
Yeah, but seriously, we are
We are getting
nearing.
around. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think if there are any
I mean,
points to close this
Far Cry 6
topic by,
chapter.
yeah, like not just Far Cry 6, like Far Cry in general, because we did touch on other Far
I
Cry's,
mean,
but this was devoted mostly to
yeah.
Far Cry 6.
But I just
So,
wanted to say a bit from just Far Cry in general
mm.
is that you called it niche, and it's still on my mind.
No, I didn't call Far Cry niche. I like,
No, I know,
mm,
but I kind of think that you said something is that no, nothing is niche anymore. And
mm,
it got me kind of thinking because, for example, Ubisoft has done niche stuff again,
mm,
like Settlers, which
mm.
I mean, the fact that it's
They actually do have one niche thing still going on. Anno, like I know
oh
for a fact
yeah,
that it's
Wait,
not a
I know,
really,
um,
yeah.
I
what you
know,
guys are talking about, that reminded me of a point I was trying to make. So,
oh,
to like sum it up, like Guide to Board has this idea called the spectacle, which is basically like everything that is has been turned into an image, and capitalism has become so strong that it can take the anti-capitalist message, anti-capitalist icons and whatever, and then sell it back to you as if it isn't a threat. And I think that that's a large part of what plays into this, is it has a lot of anti-capitalist themes and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's just using this message and selling it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very Rick and Morty aspect. Like, remember the cookies that were made with the tears of joy, was it? From thinking that you like revolted against your CEO, but like you were in the simulation and they were harvesting your pleasure from doing that.
That's exactly
Extremely
what they're
dystopian.
doing
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
every leftist dreams and ideals. That's basically
Yeah,
what they do.
exactly that. Because that's what I wanted to say. That at the end of the day, with all that Far Cry says about revolution, all that Far Cry says about, oh, I'm trying to do something, showing you these cool ideas. Let's talk about the facts of revolution, all of that, like Far Cry 4 did, sort of. At the end of the day, it's just a fucking franchise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like you
It's
think you're revolutionary because you've sat on your ass for 40 hours and finished this game, but you're just a fat kid
Consumer. Yeah,
yeah,
you're
to
just a
be
consumer.
consuming. Yeah.
honest, and this is what I wanted to say about Far Cry 6. I think at the end of the day, and I'm sorry, JB, for being so rude about this, anyone only knows about this game not because of the revolutionary ideas, not because of the fact that it's even a Far Cry game, or that it has good gameplay, or it has good enemies, or all of that. It's just that it has Giancarlo Esposito in it, and people remember him from Mandalorian or Breaking Bad.
Yara has always been called the crown jewel of the Caribbean. Our people have said this proudly for generations. But remember, this is all the colonizers see. A jewel, an object, one they can own, sell, and control. From the conquistadors, to the Yankees, to the Soviets, the colonizers have taken and manipulated our island, whether pillaging our resources or even possessing us as slaves. And now that we possess our miracle, our viviro, they covet the jewel once more. But this time, there will be no colonizers, only consumers. Consumers who will not only pay, but beg at our feet. I swear this, as a Castillo, as your protector, your guard, your lion.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I wouldn't go as far as to say the only thing, because like Far Cry is a pretty established
Yeah, but I
franchise.
mean, to be fair, like,
Far Cry
that was
5,
probably the most, like,
yeah,
pushed point in their advertising.
Yeah,
It's like, hey, we have the Breaking Bad guy in our game.
exactly,
yeah.
because Far Cry 5 didn't have anyone in it, and so nobody gave a shit.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely would not disagree with that point at all.
Yeah, which is sad and depressing.
Well, it goes on to say more about the state that Ubisoft's in than people. Like, if it was a good game, it wouldn't need celebrities.
Yeah,
Elden Ring
Clearly.
doesn't have it, and Elden Ring is everywhere. I mean, yeah, it has George
Well,
R. R. Martin behind it, but fucking, who
yeah,
gives a
it's a
shit?
Miyazaki game, dude. Like, it's a Souls game. People kill for those games and die in those games thousands of times.
I know. But for example, I'm
Yeah.
thinking of the fact that you said everything is a franchise nowadays, and I'm thinking, why did it need to be a Far Cry game? Other than it's Far Cry, like it's a name people remember.
yeah. I mean, that's sort of the thing. Is like, I mean, it didn't need to be a Far Cry game. I think honestly, if it came from some sort of like niche game that was actually more like like if it were from like an indie game company or something like that, rather than Ubisoft, like nobody would even like pay attention to it. But the fact that it is a Ubisoft game, not even because it has anything else related to the other Far Cries, like it's just Far Cry because it is. Like there's no more depth behind it.
Exactly, and that's why Ubisoft can get away with not doing breathtaking visuals like the new Horizon game. Apparently, is looking beautiful. I haven't played it.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
really
Harris.
gorgeous. On PS5 though, not the PS4 version.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
Ubisoft can get away with not putting any gorgeous visuals, not doing any, at the end of the day, meaningful social commentary. Or, to be honest, I'm saying this from other Far Cry games, especially Primal, which I feel like was probably a fever dream at best because it gave me nothing. Like,
It was, I think, initially supposed to be a DLC that was expanded into a standalone
yeah.
game.
But you know what other game was like that? One that we talked about?
Blood Dragon.
No.
Oh.
Saints Row 4.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well,
And
mm,
no, I'm saying that it gave me no experience. Like, I played Far Cry Primal, and at the end of the day, I don't know why.
I feel you. That's why I didn't even touch that game. I was like,
Yeah.
the moment I saw it, I was like, this is so bland and so generic. I'm not gonna like even spend 10 minutes on this.
Yeah, and that's why I didn't play Far Cry 5. And to be honest, aside from Giancarlo Esposito, that's why I sort of stood away from Far Cry 6. And that's why when it didn't make a splash, I felt like, oh, it's just another game.
Yeah, like I think Ubisoft's in this quagmire of like making games just for the sake of making games and just like
Seeing what's next.
not being forgotten. Yeah, like people are gonna be like, oh, they're still making games. Like they haven't come out with anything uh,
Yeah.
worthy in a long time, and that's kind of sad. Like their most successful new IP was Division, which is like, oh my god, is this game so bad? And that says a lot about this company and the
Yeah.
state it's in.
I mean, when you look at it, and aside from Far Cry 6, which again, JB, I'm going fully on your assessment here, that it is actually a good enough game. A game that is interesting, it keeps you on your foot, and it has a story that is interesting enough to follow through.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of the thing is like, I mean, for most other Ubisoft games, I wouldn't have even had the idea to go and talk to anyone else about it for as much time as we have. Like, and I think that sort of says something about the game itself. Is that like at the end of the day, it is a Ubisoft game. It is part of the Far Cry series. It is going to be something that's, not like a stellar, groundbreaking game, but I think it does have aspects within inside of it that make it different and worth talking about compared to the other things that they put out.
Exactly, that's what I mean. Like, aside from Far Cry 6, what else did Ubisoft have these past 3 years of the pandemic?
I mean, I can't think of anything.
Cute
I mean,
skins in Rainbow Six Siege. Rick and
and
Morty skin in Rainbow Six Siege. There you go.
it has your favorite game, which is Watch Dogs Legion.
Oh yeah, that was my favorite game. I couldn't believe that they had the audacity to release that garbage, hot garbage. And it has a Meadow score of like 80. I think
Yeah.
all reviewers have gone insane on mass. It's mass psychosis is what's going on. It's what's going on. Like
Well, I mean, you pay enough people, they will
it's
boost
not
your
even
game.
about that. It's like I would have been happy if they were outright paid. It's just that like it's obvious that this industry has become so so sucked dry of any actual vitality that even the reviewers themselves are like, why should we give this game unless it's like literally unplayable, a bad review?
Yeah, to
And
quote
like,
the now retired Bruce Willis in Die Hard, welcome to the party, pal. Welcome to
yeah,
the movie industry where people just, I'm sorry for being uncouth, sucking Disney's dick just because they need to have that exclusive deal. Like, oh, what will happen if the next Marvel movie comes out and we don't have that?
exactly. And like, that's the relationship they have. And it's not even limited to that. It's like, they know that people are going to purchase, like, they know millions of people are going to purchase a certain game that is popular enough. And like, all Ubisoft games are that. And they're like, instead of pissing them off for no reason, we're just going to like give it a 8 or 7.5 out of 10. And instead
Exactly.
of focusing on the review, we're just going to tell them how to find collectibles. This is the peak journalism that we have today. It's not about telling people what is good and what's bad. It's about telling people how to consume, not even what to consume anymore. It's just how to consume
To
this piece
quote
of garbage.
a very well-renowned philosopher, we are eating from the trash can of ideology.
Yeah, slowly. I am already eating from the trash
The
can.
trash can of ideology.
I mean, the guy
Yeah.
isn't Indian.
He is not Indian, but like he has
I know,
this Slavic
I know.
accent with his own
I mean,
branded
I mean,
lisp, not limp, lisp that like gives it this.
I'm
And
with
I'm
you.
not good at whatever, not good at mimicking it.
The joke I was gonna make is that it makes sense that it has an Slavic accent. His name is Slavic.
Yeah, Slavoy. But with that,
Fuck
I
off!
think we really need to
Fuck
close
off!
this
Fuck
episode.
off! Yeah.
Mm.
So the end result is, I guess, give Far Cry 6 a chance if you liked earlier Far Cry games, because I don't think it's that different in gameplay than like Far Cry 4, is it?
I would say how you go about the revolution is different.
No,
Um,
I mean the actual gameplay mechanics, like
gameplay mechanics. I
Shooting
mean,
and like shit, like driving.
so that's something that I actually didn't like. Is if you remember in the earlier Far Cry games, you had to go to like a weapons vendor to go and change your
Mm.
weapon. Now you have access to all of your weapons, all of your equipment, all at once with the pause of a menu screen, and I don't like that. But the one thing
Oh,
they added that I did like was the fishing mechanic.
oh,
okay, that's cool. So they
okay, and
took
this
away
is
the immersion in one aspect and added in
yeah.
another.
Yeah, yeah.
To be
They kind of.
honest, no, it's go ahead, JB. This is
I,
relevant.
I was just gonna say they kind of decide if they wanted to make it realistic or not, so they chose to do both.
Oh,
Mm.
great. This is a deep cut that I don't know if Amir even remembers. Amir, I haven't played Uncharted 4.
Mm.
Amir has.
Mm.
And he wrote a review for it. I don't remember for where. Do you remember?
Yeah, it's I think for Bozy Mag, yeah.
In the review, there was this line. It makes sense, but I love it because it felt so out of nowhere. He said the best thing from it was in Persian, but I'm translating it. The best thing about the new Uncharted game is the rope.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And believe
Uh,
me, it was. We're talking about a Naughty Dog game after all. Naughty Dog, fantastic developers when it comes to graphics and stories, but not so much when it comes to gameplay and like creativity and innovation in that
oh,
regard.
you mean a movie you get to push a button every once in a while is not compelling gameplay?
Well, that would be David Cage. They're not that bad, but they're just repetitive, generic third-person shooter gameplay.
So, anyways, before we go on, JB, tell our audience where they can find you if you want to be found. Don't forget the social security number and your credit card number.
Oh yeah, and let me give my current address as well too.
Yeah.
But no, to be serious, I mean, I make political content on TikTok. It's Gorillas and Gorillas. The first one, like the animal. The second one, like the fighters. That's where you can find me. But you might see me on here again as well.
Great.
And I just wanted to thank you guys again for having me on here. It's been a great time.
Well, thank you for being with
Feelings
us.
are mutual and truly, definitely. I'm not just saying this an honor. We do look forward to seeing you again, and
there will be a link to JB's stuff in the description.
Yeah, like links to what he said in case you didn't catch them, and we will probably tweet them as well. So you can also follow our Twitter in case you didn't know we have a Twitter account.
Yes, we do have a lot of stuff that probably people don't know we have. Like we have a YouTube channel where the episodes will go on the next day. If you have, for some reason, again, I do understand that because I do it myself, like to listen to it on YouTube, where many of the soundtracks and sound bites are removed because of copyright claim.
Yeah, but on the plus side, the episodes get shorter if that's something you're into.
Yeah, and aside from that, well, our third season, it has officially started. Such great news.
Yeah.
You guys sound so disappointed when you say that. Yeah.
No, I'm just like
news.
it's all. What time is it? It's like 7:23 a.m. and I've pulled an all-nighter almost. And
Me too.
As the episode was dragging on, I was just losing that much more energy that I didn't have to begin with, and I'm like at the point of collapsing right now. I'm like, I really want to be enthusiastic about I'm really happy about the start of the third season. I'm like, at the same time, I just want to finish this episode and sleep for 10 hours probably.
I know.
All right, I'll do it for us.
By the way, the thing that he says that he's so happy about the start of the new season, it makes me incredibly salty.
Oh, really? And why is that?
Because if you're really happy about it, why did you make me suffer to get you here?
Oh, well, it's a characteristic of mine that you should know by now. That,
He's fashionably late. Emphasis on fashionably.
No emphasis on late, because I've seen him.
All right, well, I can do a enthusiastic outro for us. All right, guys, thank you for tuning in to the first season of season 3. The hosts are extremely excited to welcome you guys. So much more content coming. So many more guests coming. You're not going to believe it. Going to be one of the best seasons of YASP yet to come. Hope you all enjoyed.
Okay, I think we can't top that. We should just finish the episode right now. Just not talking. Done. Okay, shoot Craig out.
Craig, mother.
Yeah.
Craig, get out of here. We don't want you anymore.
We wanna thank you.
To be honest, we don't want him in general, but we don't have any other choice.
To a shitty podcast. Yet another shitty podcast. We are deeply happy inside. That you don't have anything better to do. Don't waste your time here with us. Yet another shitty podcast. Another shitty podcast.